welcome to This Day. It is Friday, November 11th, Veterans Day. And on this Veterans Day, we have a special program for you today. And our guest is Cynthia Connors. She is not only a village resident, but she also is a veteran, and she's a civil servant, and I'm sure you've seen her many times on the Laguna Woods City Council. So we sit down and talk to her about her veteran career, as well as her civil servant career and what it's like to be a resident here in the village. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our weather. Well, we are looking at lovely skies for today and through the weekend. We are looking at highs in the 60s, 68-47, 68-48, 67-50, 66-52, and 66-51. If you are traveling, take a look at these numbers. The beaches are 65-48, 67-50, 65-48, and Palm Springs 75-50, Tahoe 41-19, Big Bear 47-21, and Mammoth 41-14. Las Vegas 60 with an overnight of 39. So definitely cool nights across the board. Our sunrise this morning was at 6:19, and our sunset will be at 4:50. And I wanted to inform you that today you can participate in the honoring the veterans, and that will be at Clubhouse 2 front patio at 10 a.m. That's the American Legion Post 257. They will present their colors and serve light refreshments. All right, stay tuned, and we will have Cynthia Connors, and we're going to learn all about her and her military life. We'll be right back.
Peggy Edwards, who heads the publishing club, writes, "Sunshine Ludi is one of the kindest people I have ever met. She not only works tirelessly to fund charitable causes, and particularly Alzheimer's, she also Zoomed our meetings and is now helping publish our village stories. It's possible that without her, we would have neither. She asks nothing in return, other than a smile."
Welcome back. Well, thank you for joining us on this Veterans Day. And we have a very special treat. We have a resident, Cynthia Connors, who holds various titles. She's a veteran, she's a civil servant, and then, of course, she's a village resident. Well, welcome to the show. It's very nice to have you on.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
You know, when we first were deciding on who we were going to have on for our Veterans Day special, one of our producers said, you know, you should contact Cynthia Connors. She has a great history. She's on the city council, and she just does a lot for the community. And so I'm so glad that you were able to join us. And boy, you do have quite a history.
Well, thanks. I mean, I've taken a few years to build it up, yes.
Yes, you have. You have. And of course, on this special day, Veterans Day, we wanted to have someone on that is a veteran and can really talk to us about what Veterans Day means. But before we get into all of that, what I'd like to do is talk about your family first, because that's kind of how this is all started, is you come from a veteran family.
I do. It's more than many families, I think. My parents were both in the Army in World War II. My mom was a nurse officer, and actually that's how they met, because my dad was in the hospital and she was his nurse.
Okay.
Kind of one of those storybook things.
I love it.
And then my brother was kind of a rebel and wanted to get out of the house, and so he joined the Navy on his 17th birthday, as soon as he could sign his own papers. Mm-hmm. And eventually he got a degree and a graduate degree and retired after 20 years in the Navy.
Isn't that great? You know, sometimes that's the plus when you go to the military. You don't necessarily have to wait afterwards, right? Or unless he did. Did he serve in the military first and then get the degree, or did he do it at the same time?
Do it at the same time.
Yeah, it's so wonderful when you can do that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
And then my older sister was engaged to a guy who couldn't afford to go to college, so he applied for an ROTC scholarship, and then he went into the Air Force.
Excellent.
And he served his 4 years and got out.
Excellent.
And then my younger sister was engaged to a guy whose draft number was 7. And I think a lot of people in the village remember what it was like in the days when people had draft numbers.
Yeah.
And so with the number 7, he enlisted in the Marines and went to officer candidate school and became a pilot. And he retired after 20 years. And then my husband, of course, is a veteran, but that came after.
Right.
Recently, we all had a reunion, all the siblings and spouses. And we had 3 retirees and 2 veterans among the group, and we stayed at a VRBO, and it had an American flag hanging out front.
Oh, nice.
But it was really tattered and old and fringy and faded. I thought, we can't be in a house, we can't let that flag be there, so we went and got a new flag and put it up. And we came back this year, and it was still bright and shiny.
Oh, I love it. Where was that?
In Santa Ana.
Oh, okay.
Since we can't travel anymore, they come to us.
Oh, I think that's great. And they're all over the U.S.?
Yeah, Virginia, Arkansas, and Colorado now.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Now, at what point then did you decide to get into the military?
After I got out of college, I went up to Mammoth for a couple of seasons. I worked at a sporting goods store. And all of my friends who stayed in LA went to law school. And I thought, well, I'm never going to get to law school up here. And I knew from my brother's experience and others that it was possible to have military funding or to get a degree while you were on active duty. And so I decided to join the Army for that very reason, because I knew they had that kind of program. And it worked, and I got into that program. And so I attended law school while I was on active duty.
That is great.
And then I became, excuse me, an Army lawyer. And but before I did that, I was in the Women's Army Corps, because that was still going on back then. And as that phased out, I went into the Transportation Corps. And the Army has a number of boats, mostly landing craft. But I was working at a military port, because the Transportation Corps is what moves everything around, all the beans and bullets up to the front line. And working at the port was really interesting, because we moved things as large as locomotives and other things for the post exchange, consumer goods, televisions, clothing, rations, food for the mess halls. Shipped everybody's household goods and cars to all the Pacific ports.
So what was your position there? Did you remember, I mean, did you have a specific title, I assume?
I think finally I was it was called a Transportation Control Officer, or Transportation Security Officer.
Okay.
And what they did was they had all the stuff that was going to go to the Philippines was in this spot in the warehouse. And next to it in this spot was all the stuff that was going to Japan. And then when a ship came into port that was going to make a stop at the Philippines, they took all this stuff. And when a ship came in for Japan, they took all that stuff. And then they got to the other end and things were missing.
Oh, no.
And so they sent out a look for them, and usually they went with this shipment. They were hardly ever lost. They were just misshipped. And aside from that, then just keeping track and making sure that things didn't sit here waiting too long before they got out.
And that was in Oakland?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So then where did you go after that?
Then I went back to the transportation school in Virginia, which is where I met Jim in about 1980. And then I was selected for law school, so then I went out to UCLA for law school.
Excellent.
And after that, I went back to Charlottesville, Virginia, to go to 12 weeks of JAG school, which teaches you the things you need to know in addition to regular law for military law. And for a lot of people, they just they go to law school while they're civilians, and then they join, which is the more common method. And so it teaches them about saluting and uniforms and things like that.
What does JAG stand for?
Judge Advocate General.
Got it. Okay. There's always so many acronyms.
There are.
My son he's in the Air Force, and boy, he is always saying acronyms. And I'm, okay, what does that one mean? And what does that one mean? There's so many. I don't know how you remember them all. So once you oh, well, wait a second. Before we move on, tell me a little bit more about right after you became a lawyer.
Well, when I was in Korea, I was a prosecutor for courts martial. And mostly it was lesser offenses such as being drunk on duty because the soldiers got so drunk the night before they were still drunk in the morning, or AWOL or black marketing.
Sure, oh boy.
Because kids were, 18 years old off the farm in Idaho, and they came over to Korea, and there are women who will do anything for $10, and it's very seductive, literally seductive. Some of them were more serious, such as attempted murder or driving a Jeep and injuring a Korean civilian, things like that.
Now, it's very unique that a woman is doing the types of things that you were doing in the military. What did you love about it, and what did you find challenging about it?
What I loved about it was that it was a place where authority was given to me right off the bat. First day on the job, I was expected to make decisions and know things, and people looked to me for that. And so I did. And that happened at the transportation terminal. That was really my first job as a second lieutenant. And there was a question that came up, and the clerk said, "Well, what do you want to do, Lieutenant?" And I thought, well, I don't know. But, I made a decision and we moved on.
Right.
And the same thing happened when I got to Korea. I wasn't in country for a week, and I was a brand new lawyer. And I had my first case, and it was a barracks theft where somebody had climbed over the transom and taken somebody's stuff. And soldiers live very close together, and it's important for them to be secure in their belongings. And my knees were shaken, and my voice was shaking, and my hands were shaking, but I got a conviction.
Right. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. And that's the thing I know I want to bring in today's, what's going on in our world today, because I find that it's very difficult for many of our young people to understand just the kinds of sacrifices that need to be made to make sure that we have a free country. And I mean, being a veteran, that's very important.
Yes, it is. It is to me. And what I'll say is, I signed up as a woman, as a lawyer, as rear echelon person. But what I knew was things could go south at any time.
Right.
There were hostages in Iran while I was on active duty. There was an invasion in Grenada. And when I was in Korea, there were shootings, there were shots fired at the border. And although I was not personally in any danger at that time, the level of readiness was such that all vehicles, well, first, no more than 10% of the people could be off the base at any given time. And my office had about 20 people, lawyers and clerks and staff people. And that meant that if somebody wanted to go to Seoul for the weekend, which was about 40 miles away, only 2 people could be away on a weekend. So you had to schedule it and plan it ahead of time.
Right.
And all of the vehicles, all the Jeeps and everything else had their gas tanks topped off and were backed into their parking spaces every night. So that people were ready at an instant's notice because we were closest to the demilitarized zone.
Right, right.
And what I knew when I was there was that if North Korea began firing a whole bunch of missiles over Japan or into the South Korean waters, and the US government decided that they wanted to beef up the security in South Korea, and it was my turn to go home. I wouldn't be going home. I'd be staying there, and more people would be coming over.
Right.
And I wouldn't be happy, but I would do it.
Right. Well, and that's the difference, right? Is that you knew what you signed up for.
Right.
You knew that it was a sacrifice that you were going to be making, which I think that today, and please chime in at any time, is that we forget what has happened before us, right, to be where we are today. And of course, today we're celebrating Veterans Day, and it's very important for our young people to understand that, because I think they're really comfortable right now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, and we don't have, we look at a war, across the globe, but we don't necessarily feel what the pain is there.
They're all fought by other people. And in the U.S., I think fewer than 5% of the people now are veterans, and we have very few veterans serving in Congress also.
Exactly.
And like only 1% of our entire population has been in combat. But they have been getting more publicity, and we know more about the injuries that are being suffered by people coming home. So that
Well,
helps.
well,
I think that's why
exactly.
people are grateful now.
Exactly. I think that there does need to be more notice about it. And then also recruiting, on the other hand, is, I think, down a little bit. I don't think they met their requirements lately.
I would not want to be a recruiter.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. But nonetheless, hopefully, as things go forward, we'll be able to look to the future and have better response to those particular types of folks that we want them to come into the military. We want them to know that that's available options to them for sure. So let's talk about you getting married. So you married when? What year was that?
1986.
1986, okay. And tell me about your husband.
Jim is a retired Army chaplain. He served 26 years, started as an enlisted guy, and then got out and went to seminary and came back as a chaplain.
Oh, wow.
Served 2 tours in Vietnam and in Germany, and the rest was stateside, Washington State, New York City, Virginia, Missouri.
He's all over.
Yeah, so we met in 1980.
Right.
And then I went off to law school and to Korea, and he retired and got out of the service. We were professional acquaintances in 1980, and he was widowed while I was in law school, and then he moved his kids to San Francisco, and and that's where I went after Korea. That you get a plum job after you have the crap job. That's the way it works.
Oh my goodness. And you, of course, have been married how long?
37 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Isn't that awesome? So when did you move to the village?
Well, I moved in 2006. My mom was looking for a place to retire, or a place. She was already retired, but she was rattling around in a 5-bedroom house. She wanted, she knew she needed something else, and we found this actually through friends. And so I told her that we would move here if she moved here, because she was dithering.
Yeah.
And she'd been in her old place 50 years, so it was a
It's hard to
choice
move.
for her.
Boy,
yeah.
that is tough, yeah.
So she lived to the ripe old age of 97 and lived right up till the hour she died. It was great.
Oh, that's nice. And she loved it here.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you guys love it
And
here.
yes.
What do you love best about the village?
I love it because it's so beautiful. I love it because there are so many things to do. And the people are really friendly.
Yeah.
It's very easy to make friends. Partly you can do things, and I live in a garden villa, and I see my neighbors on the breezeway and in the laundry room and in the mail room. Sometimes it could take me 15 minutes to get from my car to my door because I keep running into people.
Exactly. So if you're on your way and you're running late, don't be saying hi because you will be running way late. I think that's great. And I hear so many people that really do love the village. And there's so many clubs, like you said, there's so much to do. And yes, it is definitely beautiful. And I just happened to talk to our maintenance and construction director not too long ago. And there's a lot of work to be done here.
Well, that's true. But there's budgets, and then there's work.
Well, that's right. There's budgets and there's work, and then there's, obviously keeping it as beautiful as you mentioned. Now, you didn't just, be in clubs and do all of these other fun things. You decided that you would like to be a civil servant, being on the city council. At what point did you decide to do that?
Well, I graduated from being on the 3rd Mutual Board up to the city council. So my first decision was to run for election for 3rd Mutual. I was brand new in the village, and the village was fairly divided back then. There was a side that loved PCM and a side that hated PCM, who was our former manager. And I had not been here long enough to make a decision either way, so both sides supported me, so it was easy to get in. And because I'm articulate and could speak well at candidates' debates, that helps.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of curiosity and ignorance that made me decide to do this, because being on the board was very hard. It was challenging because there was a lot of controversy and a lot of animus and a lot of challenges.
Right.
But then things quieted down, and there was an opening on the city council, and because I'd been president of Third Mutual, I had a higher profile, and
Right.
the mayor asked me if I would consider an application, so I did. And the person who preceded me was a woman, and there were 4 other guys on the council, so I thought, well, they have to pick another woman, so they did.
And how long have you been on the city council?
Since 2009.
Oh, so quite some time.
Yeah, I'm the longest serving council member.
And obviously you rotate your positions, your mayors and mayor
Yes.
pro tem and city, which I think is a great thing because everybody gets to experience what it's like to be both mayor and mayor pro tem, which generally will have more responsibility.
Mayor pro tem usually doesn't do much unless the mayor says, I don't want to do this,
Oh,
why
I
don't you
see.
do
Okay.
this?
Okay.
And the mayor's position is largely ceremonial. There's no greater ability to affect legislation or to put things on the ballot. Everybody can do that. But when someone has a 90th birthday or a 100th birthday and they want someone to come to the party and present a proclamation, the mayor does it. And when a club wants someone to come speak to them about the city, they want the mayor. And there are, our congresswoman wants to meet with the mayors in her district. And the mayors generally get together once a quarter or once every 2 months to talk about a pressing issue of transportation or homelessness or something like that. So there are a lot of things that mayors do.
Yeah.
And it takes more time than just being on the council.
Right. And it is a voluntary position, so you do have to, time out slice your time up
Yes.
to be able to meet all the responsibilities. So what are some of the things that you've seen? You've seen the city grow tremendously. What are some of the highlights, accomplishments?
Well, the city has been fully built out. So in that way, there's not a lot of growth. There's some change as buildings convert to different usage. I was really proud of our city response during COVID because people in the village tend to think that that's all there is to the city, but we have all of our commercial establishments too. And our city did a good job of providing them with government grant money to put up all their plexiglass screens and to provide masks for their employees and for their customers. And we relaxed our sign restrictions so that people could put up signs that says still open during COVID or whatever they needed to do to bring in business when there weren't very many people out and about. So that was a good thing.
Right.
I'm really happy about our new library.
Oh, yes.
That will serve not just the city residents who already use our existing library a lot, but it'll also serve all the school kids who are north and south of us who don't have a local library. And it'll give them a place to come and to get computer access and to study. They have good Wi-Fi, and we're going to have an open area gathering space, so it'll be a good place for kids to sit and do their homework in the afternoon and things like that.
Yeah, we're very excited about the completion, which is coming up not too far from now.
Yeah, they're getting their windows in and their plaster on, and they've poured some of the concrete for the patio, and then they still have to do the inside finish work. So it'll probably open in the first quarter of next year.
Okay, excellent. Now there have been a couple of other things that you guys have been doing. I'm looking here at some of your notes. You actually are going through the Coastal Greenbelt Authority Vice Chair. What is that?
The Coastal Greenbelt Authority advises the Orange County Parks about the Wilderness Park that's right here on our border. The city owns some of the land that's in the park, and that's how come we have a seat at that table. And fortunately for us, they meet here in our city hall, so that's good.
That is good.
These are, I should rephrase it. Every city council member serves on some kind of regional board. Okay? Noel Hatch is on the Fire Authority. That's a full-time job. I almost did that. When the spot came available, I was senior to Noel, and I could have grabbed it because, all those handsome firefighters. But I went to some of their meetings, and they start at 6 and they go till midnight.
Oh, gosh.
I can't do this.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, so Noel's doing a great job.
Oh, good.
And Sherry Horn is greatly involved with a number of senior issues and non-discrimination issues. Carol Moore is very involved with water issues and transportation issues. So And those are all things, you know, the water flows through us down to the ocean, the traffic flows through us north and south. And the park is available for everybody. So each of the people who's on the board has something that they do.
Right, right. Well, and that's important, obviously, because one person can't do it all for sure.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, you know, a city is it's a large city, not huge, but it's large enough where you have an awful lot of people, and there's so many different things to attend to. So you're still, how much longer are you going to be on the city council? You think for a while?
Yeah, I expect I'll run for re-election in 2 years.
Okay.
That's a presidential election, and the first time it came up, I was so impressed because I was going to be on the ballot with the presidents. And then I looked at my sample ballot, and the president and the vice president are up here. And then you come to your senators and your congressional representatives, and then you start with your state people. And then you don't just have the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the treasurer, comptroller, and then you get to the State Board of Equalization. You get to a bunch of things you've never heard of.
You're like scrolling, like, where's my name?
And then you got all the judges, and then you got the county, and you got all the county officers, and the tax assessor, and the district attorney, and then you got the propositions, and then you get down to the city, and I'm way down here.
You're way down there. Oh my goodness. Well, you know, hopefully people remembered that in this last election to make sure that they do that. Let's get to the point of the day, which is Veterans Day, and hear from you what it means to you.
Well, it may sound funny, but I'm very proud to have served. It was sort of, I don't know if I knew that going in. It seemed just like kind of an ordinary thing and an opportunity. But once I was in, I was proud to be in. And once I was out, I was proud that I had been in. I appreciate it when people say thank you for your service. I hardly know what to say back because it was a good thing for me.
Right.
And so people are thanking me for something that was really good for me.
Yeah.
I don't know if the service is a good thing for all women, but I was fortunate and it was good for me. I think people are more thankful now because veterans are getting more coverage for the degree of their sacrifice.
Exactly.
And I hope that our government will fund benefits for veterans who have a lot of traumatic injuries from toxins or from IEDs or from whatever else.
Exactly.
The VA doesn't have such a great reputation, and some people have no other choice but to do that. So.
Well, and I think we're very fortunate that we have lots of organizations, Tunnels for Towers. There's so many of them that they really are taking care of our veterans and helping them by building the houses and doing all those things. So thank goodness for that, because unfortunately, it's still a work in progress, the VA. You know, we really do have to, I think, work a little harder on helping that out.
I agree.
Yeah. What would you like to say to everybody about Veterans Day, and what are some things that they should be thinking about?
I should point out that Veterans Day is different from Memorial Day. On Memorial Day, we honor those who died in the service of our country. On Veterans Day, we honor everybody who served. And I encourage people to thank veterans for their service, because I think all of them have made sacrifices. They've left their family behind and their friends behind, and hope that things would still be there for them when they came back, and hope that they would come back. Because when I joined, we were at peace, but we could have been at war any time.
Right. You did mention that anything can happen at any moment. So I do appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you, and thank you for your service.
It was my pleasure.
All right, thank you. And we're going to go ahead and tell you about our movie for the day. In honor of Veterans Day, we are showing Maverick, Top Gun, Tom Cruise. Fun flick. You're going to enjoy it. You can see that today at 2 p.m. with subtitles and 6 p.m. without subtitles, and that is sponsored by City of Hope. Thank you for joining us on this Veterans Day. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.